Thank you, Kumza. WWF South Africa and 2020 Cape to Rio yacht race Love Water announced that they're joining forces to highlight the problem of plastic pollution in the world's oceans. The Cape to Rio, the Southern Hemisphere's premier sailing event, is a transatlantic crossing from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro. Love Water has set itself two goals: to break the Cape to Rio race record of 11 days set by a rival vessel, Maserati, and to promote environmental awareness around the impact of plastic pollution on marine life while doing so, highlighting plastic waste on the high seas. Now, for more on the initiative, we're joined by Pavitray Pillay, who is an environmental behaviour change manager with WWF South Africa. Very good morning and welcome to Morning Live. Won't you remind us again why this matters and what plastics are actually doing to the environment, especially in our oceans?
Thank you, Pearl, and thank you for having me. Yes, I mean, lots of people don't know that we dump around 8 million tons of plastic in our oceans per annum. And if that's a difficult number for you, that's one dump truck of plastic per minute going into our oceans. The problem with that is this unsubstantial amount of plastic is actually affecting around 700 different species of marine life have been recorded to either been killed by ingestion or by entanglement. These plastic are becoming plastic islands. They're floating around, they conglomerate together. And what we see is only about 10% of the plastic that's in the ocean that's floating. The rest of it is actually sunk. Where it becomes a problem is when our shippings, our boats hit this plastic, So we estimate around 13 billion loss, $13 billion loss per annum due to plastic in our oceans. And I mean, the environmental damage is something we can't even put a price to. Our fish would eat the plastic. And very often, if fish are eating the plastic, if whales are eating the plastic, seals, etc., it tends to get stuck in their guts. Turtles are particularly vulnerable. They can't process plastic. It has no nutritional value. So very often, it'll block their gut. They'll die. They'll wash up. Lots of birds. Birds are the worst hit with this. They are filter feeders. So what people don't understand is that plastic never goes away. It doesn't biodegrade because of the nature of the material. But what it does do is it breaks up into very small pieces, and we call this microplastic. Now, birds, or particularly seabirds, will scoop water to get what we call microscopic plants and animals which they feed on. They don't know the difference between the plastic pellet and the microscopic animals. So birds then ingest this, go back to their nests, and they sit there thinking, I have a belly full of food, when in fact, they have a belly full of plastic and they starve to death. Where it becomes worse is a lot of seabirds feed their baby chicks. So they will go and eat and then feed their baby chicks what's in their gut. And if their gut is full of plastic, their baby chicks will be full of plastic. And the consequences of this has far-reaching implications for our oceans. And then it washes up on our beaches. So for us, we see our waste coming back at us. And what washes up is a very small proportion, but it's still quite a large portion of the plastic we dump.
Now, does this initiative involve taking reusable products back to shops, or cutting down on packaging and recycling as much as possible, or is it still pretty much all about plastic?
Well, it's, overall we need to reduce our consumption, just generally as human beings, and when it comes to plastic, more so than ever. South Africa, unfortunately, has one bad title to it, in that we're rated in the top 20 as the worst plastic polluters in the world. And the reason for that is that we're really, really, really bad litterers. We have a very poor waste management system, and we have leakage. We have high winds that blow any type of light form of plastic into our ocean, and we need to get a handle on that. So the first step for any South African to try and help reduce this problem is to actually just stem the flow of plastic entering the environment by looking at your plastic footprint and reducing it. Getting rid of those single-use plastics that you actually don't need, and being quite aware of saying, do I really need this item, coffee cup lid, straw, stocky sweet, that I use for less than 12 minutes but can last up to 400 years in the oceans?
Now, you speak about a poor waste management system. In your opinion, how is South Africa doing when it comes to what the rest of the world is doing, especially in terms of trends and what people are doing and innovative new strategies to make sure that there is a sufficient recycling?
Well, the great thing, Pearl, is that South Africa generally has now become a lot aware of what the plastic problem really is. And people are starting to have the right conversations about how to address this problem. And that's great. So at WWF South Africa, the first thing we've done is we've started an initiative called the South African Plastic Pact. And what that does is it has set time-bound targets for big corporates, retailers, recyclers, brand owners, businesses to actually decide on how to reduce the plastic packaging, the plastic in their stores, the plastic that they then cover stuff to sell to consumers. These are time-bound targets, which means by a certain date, they would have either have everything in their store is completely recyclable or is made from recycled plastic. This is a bold move for the South African business industry to move, but it's such a needed one. For everyday South Africans, we ask simple things. You know, I'm often asked, I don't want to change my lifestyle. It's too complicated. Recycling is too difficult. So what South Africa is doing is we now have a voluntary on-pack recycling system, which is a new labeling system. So if you remember before, Pearl, and I think I'm probably guilty of this, I never understood what those numbers on the plastic package, and I don't think most South Africans understood. Lots of people think, oh, does this mean a 7 means that I can recycle it 7 times? Well, actually, no, those are actually resin numbers. They tell you the type of plastic. So we're trying to move away from that in South Africa. And what we're looking at is just 2 labels. It's recyclable or it's not.
Absolutely, and that's where we'll have to leave it. Thank you so much for your great insights and, of course, the great work that you continue to do. That is, of course, Pavitray Pillay with WWF, who's urged South African consumers to reduce the amount of waste that is being used. Its mantra is refuse, reduce, and reuse. Those are the 3 key words. And then, of course, do recycle. This involves taking reusable products back to shops, cutting down on packaging, and recycle as much as possible. It's not much. You don't have to change your lifestyle, just change your behavior and your habits.